Jones, co-host of the John Telford Detroit Show. Coming to you every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock on WJZZ Cool TV. Also streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Dr. John Telford is a former Detroit Public Schools superintendent, a former world-class athlete, conqueror of Olympic champions, a championship track coach, poet, newspaper columnist, a longtime civil rights crusader, and author of 7 books. Creative Insubordination, What Old Men Know, The Will Robinson Story, The Poetic Prancings of Mad John, The Poet Emperor of Earth, and his explosive autobiography, A Life on the Run. Plus, another upcoming poetry book, Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic. His books are available on Amazon.com or by calling 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Dr. Telford has been called a legend and also a lightning rod for controversy, a recipient of the City Council Spirit of Detroit Award and the Joe Louis Foundation Spirit of the Champ Award. He was named Wayne State University's Alumnus of the Year, and a Detroit track is named for him. His email is drjohntelfordedd@aol.com. That's dr.johntelfordedd@aol.com. Dr. Telford also has a show on WCHB AM 1340 that airs on Saturdays at 9:30 in the morning and Mondays at 6:30 in the evening. That's on WCHB AM 1340, Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and Mondays at 6:30 p.m. And now, without further ado, I present to you that old native Detroiter, the one and only Dr. John Telford.
Thank you, Charlotte Jones, author of A Ain't Always for Apple, an erotic adult alphabet book. And this is a superb book that you have to get. It's written by Char J. Actually, Charlotte Jones is her full name, and she's got a super book that everybody needs to purchase. My name is Detroit. I'm a blue-collar town. Blue salt melts my mid-March snow. Speedy cars and sprinters spring from me. I father fierce fighters and funky music. In a Motown moment, I can spit the blues right back in a bureaucrat's eye. Have you never seen blue salt? No complex chemistry here, only the old color of a new sky. And there's a new sky dawning on Detroit today, because we've got James J. Beasley in the studio today. James Beasley, that superb poet, that researcher, that alumnus of Detroit Northwestern High School, of which I am also alumnus, although I did not graduate from there. I graduated from Denby for reasons I've shared with you on other stations. But, back on August the 31st, we had Ridgely Hudson in the station. And I was really impressed with that young man. He's 21 years old. He's running for the school board. I'm running for the school board, but I'm giving everybody a chance, who's running for the school board to share their platform too, out of good journalism. I'm a fair journalist, so I'm doing that. And we've got, we had Tim Moore last week, the CEO of Detroit Internet Protocol Television. And next week, who have we got next week? Oh, next week we've got poet Khadija Shabazz. That's Malik Shabaz's daughter. She's a very fine poet. And the week after that, we rescheduled Lamar Lemons. He couldn't make it last time when they had him scheduled. So he's also running for the school board. And after that, we got Alia Moore. That'll be on October the 17th. And Alia Moore is a sycophant of Helen Moore's. I don't think they're related, but Alia is a superb activist and educator. And she is running for the school board. And then there are a couple of spots that are open. A couple of them have asked to come on. Angelique Peterson Mayberry has asked to come on, and so has Deborah Hunter Harville. But I haven't heard from them whether they are going to take those spots. And then there's one spot, the first week in November, which I'm probably going to keep for myself because I trust all of us Detroiters will remember. Vote Telford for the school board in November. Actually, do it in September if you get, the absentee ballot. But we have in the station today a man whom I have tremendous admiration for. I've known him a whole long time, and he not only is a fine poet. You want to do a poem? Want to do one of your poems before we get rolling?
Okay.
Do one of your poems.
Yeah, I'll lead off with a poem called "The Pinnacle." Now, the reason I like to use
The Pinnacle.
The reason I like to use the pinnacle because it was inspired to me by my late pastor, Dr. Frederick George Sampson.
Okay.
And Dr. Sampson would always say that thoughts are like fugitives.
Mm.
If you don't capture them, they will escape. So one night I was thinking, and I was wrestling with a thought from 3 o'clock in the morning to 3:30 in the morning. And all I could hear was Dr. Sampson's voice in my ear say, "Wake up and write it down." And so I did. I was obedient to the Spirit, and I began to
He's
write.
passed, hasn't he?
He passed about 21 years ago.
Yeah.
21 years
Yeah.
ago this October 3rd.
Yeah, time goes.
But I could hear Dr. Sampson's voice say, "Wake up and write it down." So I woke up and wrote it down. And the Lord spoke to me, and these words came. He says, "Life is like a mountain with its lofty peaks and slopes. Dreams and goals and thoughts from high are filled with optimistic hopes. So I stand at the base, and I look at the face, and I ask God, what shall I do?" But the answer was plain as he spoke to my heart, soul, and brain. And he says, "It's all up to you." He said, "With my permissive will, you can climb up that rugged hill and gain your way to the top. So with strong faith in my heart, my climb I did start, knowing that I would not stop. For you see, a challenge awaits the brave soul, the one who dares to climb. When you conquer that difficult mountain, with success you only find that the barriers of your mind are the mountains you must climb. The doubt that fills your heart are the red seas that you must part. The faith that fills your soul is where you must find your gold." He said, "Your success is in your task. All you have to do is ask. Seek, and you shall find solutions to every mountain that we climb. For every mountain that we climb is a cross we all must bear. But that burden seems so light when you know you're in God's care. So when you share your dreams and visions and others seem doubtful and ever so cynical, just remember that spot at the mountain top is a place that's called the Pinnacle."
The Pinnacle, the Pinnacle. James J. Beasley, poet. James J. Beasley. All right, I have a poem too, and I call my poem "My Vision."
Okay.
I have a vision in my heart and in my spirit and my soul that all the children of Detroit will never have to pay the toll of poverty and ravaged mind or end up dead or on the dole, but will through education find their life-fulfilling future goal. And this is why I am running for the school board. And I am holding up a poster that my manager, Police Commissioner Willie Burton, has been putting in a lot of the stores, because I know it's going to be an uphill climb. I don't have a lot of money to spend to run for the school board for a variety of reasons, not the least of which I spent money the last time and then it never got used because my manager was Isaac Robinson, who tragically passed, and his family got the money, and I never got the money back. It was almost $18,000, over $18,000 was the total. But I am running for the school board, so check that little box on November the 8th that says John Telford. Check that little box. And I hope I get a couple of people that agree with me on that school board so we can fix this reading program. And we're going to be talking a lot about that in the show today because we have got Mr. Beasley on the show. And he is a knowledgeable researcher who has got some statistics that you all need to be aware of. So, without further ado, I'm going to start asking you some questions, James, about that situation, because we're in a crisis. I mean, this is a reading crisis. So first, tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to launch into some questions about this crisis that we are facing in the city.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Telford. Yeah, I'm a lifelong Detroiter. I tell people it runs so deep in me. I tell people I'm Detroit born, Detroit bred. When I die, I'll be Detroit dead.
Yeah, it sounds like the old I'm Democrat born, Democrat dead. When I die, I'll be Democrat dead. And I'm a lifelong Democrat and a lifelong Detroiter as well.
Yeah, and I'm one who appreciates the opportunity I get out of life. And my fundamental opportunity I got was because of the foundational learning I received from Detroit Public Schools.
Right.
It was back then when Detroit Public Schools was considered a system.
You bet.
And we weren't defining ourselves by geography. Like when
Yes.
we do like a district is a geography. A
Yeah.
system
Yeah.
means, by definition, all systems have three parts. You got input, you got process, and you got output.
Yeah.
And so they looked at it saying the input was the students coming in. The process was the approach that we took to transform these students in the 13 years that we had them. 13 years from kindergarten to graduation.
Yeah.
So how can we make them productive citizens and make them ready for the world? And they did it. They did it at a side level where when I was coming through Detroit schools, we were considered the model for
Right.
big cities
Yeah.
in terms of how do you educate the masses.
Yes, we were.
And we educate the masses in terms of having scalability. And what does scalability mean? That's one of those terms that people use but don't quite understand. Scalability means, and from my background in computers, I understand scalability means you put in effort to achieve a task, and the more the effort is put in on the front end, then as you get further down the line, it takes you less and less effort to get the results that you're looking for. That's what a scalable solution looks for. So when I look at my background, I was born and raised in Detroit, and I like to say that my father was a hard-working man. I have the ultimate amount of respect for the gentleman of his generation.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people I'm the son of a former sharecropper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and for those of you who don't know what a sharecropper
What a
is,
sharecropper
a
is.
sharecropper is first cousin to a slave.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you did the same work, and you got the same pay. You know, so my father had a third grade education, and he had a third grade education, and he grew up without a father in the house, so he didn't know what it was like. So all those values that he didn't have growing up, he made sure that myself, my brother, and my two sisters had those values. So he raised us up in Detroit, but he had a third grade education. He was functional illiterate, but he was the smartest man I knew. So I knew what it was like to live a life with not being able to read or build literacy because my father would have it. Now, we would go into a store like Sears, for example, if there was a contract to be read or something, he knew how to talk to people. He was smart. He could interface with them. He would take the paperwork from the gentleman and say, oh, let me take a look at this, you know, and we'll get back to it. Then we'd go around the corner. He'd give me the corner paper and say, Jimmy, read this and tell me what it says.
Yeah.
And I was able to do it. He understood. And he went on from there. But I saw day to day how not being able to decode the art of reading,
Man.
made his life a little bit more difficult. And I knew I didn't want to experience that. So we grew up in a great environment.
Did we
Angel Elementary School I went to. And I look at some of the classmates I grew up with at Angel Elementary School and some of the things that they've done, just beyond belief. I look at
Isn't that over near Haverhill?
Angel used to be on Homer, and it was on Euclid and Homer on the west side.
Oh, on the west side. I'm thinking of the wrong school. Okay.
Yeah, so I look at some of the people we went to school with, like Ray Parker Jr. I remember when Ray first started playing the clarinet in Mr. Kirby's band. I remember Ollie Brown. He started beating a little rubber drum pad. When he went from doing that to becoming Stevie Wonder's drummer when they Superstition came out, and when the Rolling Stones did their reunion tour, they had 3 blacks playing for them.
We have good music programs. I learned to play the violin at Estabrook Elementary on Linwood and McGraw when I was 7 years old.
Yeah, so we know we don't know what our gifts are going to be, but we got to tap into
Yeah.
the kids early.
Yeah.
And so that's what got me started. And then I graduated from McMichael and then went to Northwestern High School. And after graduating from Northwestern High School, I had a wonderful counselor at Northwestern, Miss Mildred Litter. And for those of you who know the rapper Big Sean, Miss Leonard was his grandmother.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so he actually wrote a song in dedication to her and the influence that she had not only on him but the whole school. Those who were in the John F. Kennedy Study Hall in Northwestern, we all came through her and got some great leadership and got off to a good start. So some of the people I went with are now doctors, lawyers. So school was doing what it was supposed to do. I went up to Eastern Michigan University, and while I was at Eastern Michigan University, it was good for me. I got there based upon a recommendation of Miss Leonard, and while up there, I was the first black student ever elected president of the student senate.
All right.
And vice president of the student
I
body.
didn't know that.
Yeah, so those kind of leadership things have always let me know that if you're going to be a leader, you got to be out front sometimes.
And you talk about our parents and how they came up, sharecropping. I mean, the times were a lot harder in those days. My father was a literate man.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Latin student. That the teachers cried when his coal miner father took him down into the coal mines.
Mm-hmm.
When he was 13 years old, he was working in the coal mines, and came up here to Detroit. And at the age of 16, he was fighting professional boxer.
Mm.
He was a bodyguard for Walter Reuther. That's a whole long story. But the generations today don't really have a feel for how hard it was for young people and children. But let's.
No, hold on.
I think we got.
You're watching the Dr. John Telford Detroit Show, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
Thank you for that station break, Char J, author of A Ain't Always for Apple. And on Saturday, August the 1st, before I forget this.
August is gone. So.
October, yeah, thanks for catching me. I'm always doing that. On Saturday, October the 1st, at Hunt Street Station at 2200 Hunt Street. Saturday, October the 1st, at Hunt Street Station in Detroit. From 7 to 10 p.m., there will be a fabulous evening of storytelling with great and for ticket information, email this email, griot. It's griot, Griot, and, write out the word and, A-N-D, grub, G-R-U-B, at gmail.com. Again, and that's my activist colleague and fellow poet, Tawana Petty, who has asked me to make this announcement. I'll say it one more time. On Saturday, October the 1st, at Hunt Street Station, at 2200 Hunt Street in Detroit, from 7 o'clock to 10 p.m. If you want tickets, email griotandgrub at gmail.com. And we have outstanding poet and talented researcher James J. Beasley on the John Telford Detroit Show on WJZZ Internet Television today. So, James, why are you uniquely qualified to help solve the literacy crisis in the Detroit Public Schools Community District?
Well, thank you, Dr. Telford. That's a good question. Once again, I go back to one of the things that Dr. Sampson would always tell us. He would say that life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived.
Okay.
And along those lines, I look at some of the unique experiences that I had after coming out of Eastern Michigan University. While in high school at Northwestern, I was involved in the co-op program. I actually worked for IBM when IBM was on 2nd and Pallister in Detroit. And I worked for them my senior year, my junior and senior year. And upon graduating from Eastern Michigan, I took a job at IBM again and to work with them straight out of school. But the first part of my career was pretty much in a data processing field. And I worked for IBM, Hewlett-Packard, Xerox, Sun Microsystems. Then I had a chance to spend 10 years in the automatic identification field with a couple of companies. And then subsequently going into Sun Microsystems. And when I was Sun, I had a chance to become the account manager of a Fortune 500 company, Corning Fiberglass, and we implemented the largest SAP, which is an enterprise resource planning software program in the world at the time. So to have 2 years to do that, it was a $20 million project.
Whoa.
I had a chance to see what it takes at the highest level. How corporate decisions are made and implemented. And so those are the experiences I get on the computer side. Then subsequently, I went into more of the education-related field while I worked for Blackboard. And when I worked for Blackboard, I was a regional account manager handling 5 states. And in 5 states, we would call on the higher education.
Now, what was that company?
Blackboard.
You said something about morbid education? No.
No. It was Blackboard. Blackboard does is Blackboard.
But there was something you said, something education. What was that company?
I was.
Sound like you said morbid, but I don't think the word was morbid.
No, it's not.
No, okay.
Yeah, so what we did at Blackboard is I was a regional manager. I covered 5 states, and we call on higher education colleges and universities. So we would sell one-card systems in. So we would have an identification card that had multiple purposes. You could use a card for identification. You could use it for meal access. You could use it for door access. You can use it for security. And what that does is it takes a whole system and it tied it together. And those kind of experiences can really be translated over into Detroit, and we can get some positive benefits from that. And then the thing that really got me going in the education piece is I was a regional manager for BEL, Building Educated Leaders for Life. And for those who have a sense of memory, we ran the summer school program and the after school program for Detroit Public Schools. And BEL's whole program was designed to close the achievement gap. And we found that 2/3 of the achievement gap was contributed to the summer learning loss. So from the time a student leaves school in June to the time they return, it takes the teacher on average 2 months just to get the student back to where they were at before they left.
Because they haven't been learning over the summer.
That's right.
Yeah.
So all of this leads you to say, well, is Detroit in a reading crisis? Because this is how you figured that out.
Absolutely. And that's what really got me going.
Detroit is in a reading crisis.
Other side.
Yeah, well, I was showing it this side because I think the camera is on James right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Detroit is in a reading crisis, no question about it. And that is why I am running for the Detroit Public School
Turn it
Board.
around. Turn it around.
Turn it around.
There
Okay,
you go.
This way.
This way.
I'll go
Straight.
this
There.
way.
Now come down.
Now come down.
There you go.
There we go. Detroit is in a reading crisis. And as James Beasley has so succinctly and accurately stated, we've got to get Detroit out of that reading crisis. And he stated some of his qualifications in this endeavor. And he is totally qualified, and that's why we got to get out of this crisis. Okay, he's got a program that goes by 2 names. One of them is Quick to Learn. The other one is 2 Sigma, and he's involved in that program with Jim Hare, who always tells me, don't talk about the program. Talk about what needs to happen and how the program needs to come in to fix the reading crisis, crucial reading crisis that we've got in the city. And I always do what he tells me not to do anyway, because I think people need to know about Quick to Learn. They need to know about 2 Sigma, because for one thing, Quick to Learn is one of the only, if not the only, programs in the country that is so confident in its success potential that it's pay only for success. You don't have to pay them, if they don't succeed.
These are your companies?
He's viscerally involved with that
Yeah.
company. And so what is 2 Sigma, James? What is it?
Well, 2 Sigma is a group of researchers that have been in existence for over 20 years. And they've gone all around the country just tackling the most difficult problem in America is how do we get students who are poor, in poverty, how do we get them to grade level reading? And we do it through intensive tutoring. We do it through intensive research, and it's based upon what I like to call settled case law in education. We don't turn around and try to reinvent the wheel. We try to take what's already been proven and implement it with fidelity. So when you take a look at the work of Dr. Benjamin Bloom, he's probably one of the most
Taxonomy.
one of the most renowned educators
Yeah.
out of University of Chicago in 1984. He came out with everybody knows him for his Bloom taxonomy.
Right.
But what they don't know is the work and research he's done in his 2 Sigma group. So if you look at how we learn, he was intrigued with how can we learn at a faster pace, because scientists will tell you that humans, we only use 15 to 20% of our brain capacity. And so that space that's unused, we like to call quantum learning. So how do we get to that space? Because that space is what's going to catch us back up. And so he began in his research, and he found that by using a mastery learning approach, that he was able to get improvement. There was 1 standard deviation greater than a conventional learning approach. But he also found that by combining mastery learning with effective one-to-one tutoring, he was able to do twice that. He was able to get 2 sigma, or 2 standard deviations more growth over the same period of time.
Now, how do we achieve one-to-one tutoring in a district that's got 50,000 kids? What's the approach to that?
Well, the approach to that is actually what we call a blended learning approach. You know, it's a combination of conventional classroom. It's definitely conventional, focusing on mastery learning, but again, you get to the tutoring on a as needed basis there, so you can identify it. Now, one-to-one tutoring is going to be very difficult to achieve when you got 50,000 students, and that's one of the main reasons why that approach hadn't been taken. But one of the things that we found that by effective implementation of technology, that we're able to get
Computers.
effective implementation of technology, not just the computers, but it's the whole thing, because people look at a computer and they think by throwing a computer something you're fixing a problem. No, you have to take a systems approach. Everything needs to be integrated. So when we talk about 2 Sigma, we're talking about a framework, if you will, a framework that embellishes success. And so our whole approach is taking a look at what works, what's effective, because we utilize high effect size elements, to make a difference, so that if you got something that's going to that's going to move the students at a higher rate, at a faster rate, that's what we want to use, because it'll make a difference.
This is the program that I tried to institute into the Detroit Public Schools. In 2012, when I was the superintendent pro bono, I was doing it for free under emergency financial mismanagement. We had an emergency financial manager who had been appointed by Governor Snyder, and for some reason or other, he just was opposed to the whole idea. Later, he said he was wrong. Later, he said he should have done it. If he had done it, the kids would be out of trouble now. But he didn't do it. So what I would hope, I would sincerely hope, that this board and administration, whether it's the current board or a new board, if we get a new board, and I'm a new board member, I would sincerely hope that the board and administration would give your program an opportunity to make a presentation to them, and also share the evidence base that you come from, and the fact that you have got that you're field proven, that you've got research behind you, so we can. I mean, these kids have got to learn to read. You got a board sitting up there. A couple of them, some pretty good board members, but there's some board members that just sit up there like lumps and aren't doing anything, and they know that the program is not working. They know the kids can't read. So if you continue to do the same thing you've been doing and know that it doesn't work, that is a form of insanity. So hopefully, if you are listening to this show today, and if you aren't, I'm sending it to you anyway. So let's get cracking on this. Whatever board we're going to have after November the 8th,
Right.
we've got to. I mean, these kids. We're the adults. We're supposed to be taking care of these kids. And we're not doing it.
You're watching WJZZ Cool TV, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like us, follow us, share us, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
And thank you, Char J, for that commercial, or was it a station break? I'm always
You are
calling
welcome.
it. Okay, and we have James Beasley on the station today. We have James Beasley on WJZZ, the John Telford Detroit Show. And there's an expression that James has used that I'm not totally familiar with. It's called effect size. EFFECT hyphen size, SIZE. Effect size.
I think he kind of covered that. You kind of covered that a little bit, didn't you?
Why is that so important, though?
Well,
say it again.
It's important because it lets you know how well you're achieving your task.
Okay.
And what I like to share with you is that coming out of business, and the business world was a little bit different than selling to the academic world. Because in the business world, if you talk to a businessman, you have one common denominator, and that's making a profit.
That's right.
Everybody wants to make money.
Yeah.
So I can come in, regardless of what I look like, regardless of what I have to say, if I can put together a valid proposal that shows them how they can take an investment and get a return on their investment, they'll have a way of universally evaluating that. They'll evaluate in one or two ways. They'll evaluate it on payback period. In other words, how long does it take me to get my money back? And you'll also evaluate it on return on investment. Now, one of the things I find particularly frustrating with dealing with educators is they don't like to deal with numbers.
You're talking my language now. I hate to deal with numbers. That's why we got geniuses like you to do it.
Yeah. And
Because I am numbers man.
even when you look at the most recent literacy plan, which was laid out at the last Detroit Public School Board meeting, it goes over a lot of the fundamentals that you need: letter recognition, phonemic awareness, phonics, word recognition, fluency, vocabulary and knowledge, text comprehension, integrated writing, speaking, listening, and language instruction. But all of these things are good, but it's not, and they call it a plan, but it's not a plan because it has no measurables. Every plan has to be smart. It has to be specific. It has to be measurable. It has to be.
It has to have timelines too.
Yeah, it has to have
Timelines.
timelines. None of that is posed here. So how do you determine success? If you did this thing with 100% fidelity, how will you know you're in a winning situation?
Yeah.
That's why you have to define. When you.
Oh, we got a caller. Caller, you're on the John Telford Detroit Show on WJZZ. Caller, please state your name and your comment or question. Hello, caller? Caller? Our station manager, Roger Penzabeni, just stated that we have a caller on the line. But we're not hearing you, caller. Well, perhaps he will come in at a later time. We are listening and we are hosting today James J. Beasley, outstanding poet, researcher, and the topic of the day is the crisis in the Detroit public schools, the reading crisis in the Detroit public schools that have to be fixed. And so James, while our station manager is trying to bring that caller in, we're not hearing him. I guess there's been some kind of technical difficulty that's prevented us from hearing the caller. Talk a little bit about the board election that's coming, James, and why you feel that is.
I think I heard something.
Do we have him? Hello, caller. Are you in? Can't hear you, caller. No, caller's not coming in, Roger. He's just not coming in.
I think these questions, I think it should be reversed. Like, why is the current board failing Detroit students and families? Then it would speak to why is the board election so important, because if they're failing, then that makes the election more important. So I think reverse those and that'll feed to the other one.
Okay, well, I like the way you put that, because we have to determine as citizens what's on the ballot this year.
Right.
Education is on the ballot. Education is on the ballot like it's never been on the ballot before. 5 years ago, 6 years, we just got our elected school board back. And the first thing we charged them to do was to get someone that could lead us out of abysmal numbers. When we look at the numbers, if we look at how we're evaluated on a national basis, there is
okay, because I live on Franklin, right between Hubble and Schaefer.
National Association of Education.
Hubble and Plymouth.
By, across the nation.
I'll be riding through there.
And it's called
What's
the
up?
Nation's Report Card, and it lets us know how we're doing. So for the last 3 evaluation periods, and it's done on every other year basis, Detroit has finished 20 out of 20 of all of our major cities. And so it frustrates me that we always end up on the bottom of the list that mean the most. and we need to find a way to turn it around. And so that's one of the things that disturbs me greatly. And then when we also look at accountability, when we take a look at the state assessments, the state assessment is called M-STEP. And what the M-STEP does is it measures progress for 4th and 8th graders, 3rd and 8th graders. And in the last M-STEP assessment that we just recently took, and we had about almost a 90% participation rate, but we had a 9% proficiency or above number for our 3rd graders. That meant 91% of our children are not reading at grade level at the 3rd grade. And so what does that mean? 91%. Some people get confused with percentages. Let me break it down to you in real numbers. With those kind of numbers, that means if you send 100 kids into this system, only 9 of them will be reading at grade level based upon the current performance. Now you ask the question, why is this important? Well, we know that in order for us to achieve our goals, it takes a critical mix of leadership at the top. We have 4 seats available on a 7-seat board, so we've got that. The first thing the people did was entrusted these board members to go out and to get a superintendent who can fulfill the wishes of the community, and that's to teach our kids to learn how to read. They went and made their assessment, and when they made their assessment, we began to, and when I say we, I'm speaking in terms of the Two Sigma research group, began to approach them with ideas because we were excited the fact that we had a new board, we were excited that we had a new superintendent, and we wanted to give them opportunities. So at that particular time, I was representing a company called Max Scholar, who had an approach to take Orton Gilliam, which is a reading and learning approach that uses phonics, phonemic awareness, and all those other things we just talked about. We presented that to the superintendent when he first came on board 6 years ago, and we were received not well. So I like to ask ourselves now, all of a sudden, he's proposing a literacy plan, of which the very thing that we were proposing to him 6 years ago, Max Scholar, he has as a cornerstone of his plan. And I'd like to know what's changed from now until then that makes this acceptable. But most of all, I like to say that our approach uses science, mathematics, and management to get predictable, calculated, exponential success. And that's the key that's missing in everything. Is the fact that we aren't measuring. Because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And those are the basic functions. And when you start looking at management, there's 5 elements of management. You get planning, organizing, implementing, developing, and controlling. And that's what the responsibility of the school board members are. The school board members have one employee, and that one employee is a superintendent. The school board's primary purpose is to set policy, and it's the administration's job to implement the policy. So we need a school board that can give us policy that meets our needs. And when we start taking a look at policy that meets our needs, when we look at the power of effective board policy, there's a cause and effect relationship between measured action and success. And you need to take the tools that you have available to you and use every tool that we have. And the most important tool we have right now, everybody remembers the No Child Left Behind program. Very punitive, very ineffective.
Yeah, no rich child left behind, basically, was what it was.
Yeah, but we've come out with a new approach under the Obama Biden administration, and it's called Every Student Succeeds Act.
Okay.
And Every Student Succeeds Act gives us new approaches towards solving these lingering problems.
So they signed that in 2015. Is it working?
It's when in areas where you apply it, it does work.
Okay.
Now, in order for it to work, each state is required to come up with a plan to achieve their own ESSA objectives.
Okay.
And the state of Michigan, as far as their plans, so we can put our numbers in conjunction with the backdrop of what the plan requires. The state of Michigan has a goal of 90% proficiency in reading and math. 90%. Now keep in mind, we're upside down.
Right.
We're getting less than 9% proficiency.
Yeah.
So that lets us know the gap to go. Once again, going back to my background in sales, if given a goal at the beginning of the year, we have quarterly reviews. And in quarterly reviews, you look at where do you stand in relationship to your goal. And if you're over the goal, that's good. If there's a gap to goal, you need to come up with a plan to remediate that gap to goal. That's the importance of measurement. We don't see any of this occurring, with the current school board, and that's all part of basic management. Another thing it does is it allows you to do a pay for success model. And what is a pay for success model? That's the inverse of what we're currently doing. I like to say we're doing a pay for failure model, which means we're paying the vendors, we're paying our partners to implement certain projects, and we're hoping a pay for success model once again defines what success looks like before you begin the project. And no money is exchanged until the success is achieved. In other words, it ensures the investors, it ensures the taxpayers that they're going to get what they paid for. And that's what innovation looks like. It also allows you to do what we call public-private partnerships. And there's a certain impact of investors out here who are just as frustrated as I am and other people are. It's saying we can fix this problem, and it doesn't make sense. So they'll put up their money up front to give us the resources, so the resources don't become a constraint to us achieving this project. So with the resources, you can.
That's important. Explain how that happens, because that is very important.
Yeah, well, what that happens is they enter into an agreement, and it has to be a defined agreement as to what success looks like, so that they can be assured that once we achieve these numbers, we're going to get our return back.
Yeah.
And so it's a win-win-win for everybody. So everybody is incentivized to do that. So that brings us new resources coming to the table, so we can make sure we have a level playing field inside the classroom. And once we give them the tools, the techniques, the tactics, the research, the hardware, the software, and everything working together along that framework, now you have the ability to get a good result. And the third thing that it calls for research and evidence-based solutions to be implemented. And what does that mean? That means you can't come to me telling me I think this is going to work. You need to show that research which substantiates your claim, which we have a lot. And beyond the research, now you got to be able to implement what we want to do. So the current procurement and accounts payable policies of Detroit Public Schools, because this is innovation, it looks like something we haven't seen before. How can you have a policy in your internal accounts payable department that accepts something they haven't seen before? So that means the board members are going to have to say, how can we take advantage of this? And what policies do we need to modify in order to do it? So that's why one of the things we suggested and are asking is for a community listening session. Because if you listen, you learn. And I come back to when I was in training for IBM, we would be tested every week, high stakes tests. 5 weeks we would be in a branch, another 5 weeks we would be in Atlanta testing. And you had to maintain an 80 average. And if you didn't maintain an 80 average, you were sent back home. So at the end of each testing period, there was always a test put up in the back of the room. And I was maybe one of 5 blacks in a room full of about 40 people. And each week, there was one brother who kept coming at the top of the chart. Fred Jones. Every week, Fred Jones. He was driving these people crazy. Who was Fred Jones? And I got a chance to talk to Fred, and he was a former pilot out of the military and turned down a job at Republic Airlines to come and become a systems engineer for IBM. And I would say, Fred, you're so quiet. How do you get these high scores? And he said something to me I'll never forget. He said, James, I learned a long time ago that he who speaks teaches, and he who listens learns. And with that in mind, it was powerful. So I like to say innovation looks like something, we haven't even seen before. And so if we can, be open enough to say, hey, we need an all hands approach on to getting these jobs done, we'll never make the progress we need.
And this program, as I understand it, is highly motivating to students. I have to mention that there is a serious attendance problem in Detroit Public Schools Community District. would it be your perception, James, that a program like this could actually have a positive effect on the attendance problem in the schools?
Without a doubt, because those things that our children get engaged in, we keep their attention. When I was in school, I hate to say it, but I never missed a day of school because I found school to be engaging, and my mother also had some very strict rules, and she had a way of emphasizing her points here. So engagement means everything. There was actually I had come to the school board with a solution before, and it was never really seriously considered, and it would have addressed the school attendance problem. And we want to implement it in our program too. And it's the concept of creating virtual villages. We like to say that it takes a village to raise a child, but we're good on slogans and bad on implementation. But the way this would work is we would use the technology that we would have. It would bring a software system in that would allow us to create those virtual villages. So for each student we have in the system, they've got people who are concerned about their progress. So if we can tie them in electronically by text messaging, for example, and we can have a closed loop system. So we knew exactly when they came to school, and when they were absent from school, we could set a system up that would report in the time frame that they were absent in such a manner where a text message could go out to all of their stakeholders to let them know that Johnny wasn't in school today. Now, first step to problem resolution is problem identification.
Right.
The first thing they try to do when skipping is they don't want people to know. So if they know you're going to be on top of it, you can stay on top of it.
Right.
But a 77% truancy rate is not acceptable. We have to create environments where it can end schemes that allow our children to come to school, want to be in school, and learn while they're in there.
You're watching,
go ahead.
you're watching WJZZ Cool TV live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
Thank you for that station break, Char. Miss Virginia Starkey, fondly known simply as V, the proprietress of V's Boutique, offers a wide range of fine clothing and accessories for ladies. You can find all sizes of women's fine apparel in V's one-stop excellent customer service at V's Boutique that you can't find anywhere else in Detroit anymore. V's is at 16423 East Warren Avenue. 16423 East Warren Avenue, right around the corner from the Alger Theater and one of the few branch libraries that's still open. And you can call V for an appointment at 248-662-6622. And we are interviewing James Beasley, outstanding poet, gifted researcher, and the topic today is how can we fix the reading program in the Detroit Public Schools, whereof I am a candidate for the Detroit Public Schools Community Board. So check the box that says John Telford, vote for me on November the 8th. If you get the absentee ballot, vote for me in September, which is this month right now. Because we've got to have a little bit of a turnover on that board, so maybe we can get them to finally make sure that our kids know how to read, because I can't think of anything more basic than teaching children to read, which we are not doing with our children at this point. So why is the current board failing students and families? Why aren't they do you have any explanation? I don't have any logical explanation for this. Maybe you do, James. I can't understand it.
I can't say why, I can say how. How is not holding people accountable to do the jobs they're supposed to do. One of the best managers I ever had, Calvin Kirkland, once told me, he says, I'll do everything for you but your job. And we hire people to get a job done. And after 6 years of performance of this board. The performance that we're now giving. This is not only the superintendent's report card, this is the board's report card. This lets us know how effective we're doing. And I'm not doing this just to raise alarm. I'm just saying that.
Well, we have to raise alarm. I mean, we're Detroiters. We want our kids to be able to read. You know, define what a 00 school is. Define that.
A 00 school. We have two measurements that we try to look at in terms of defining literacy. One is reading, and the other is math. And so, as we go through the process of taking these state exams, the numbers are then recorded within the state education register. It's recorded in 1 or 2 columns in reading and math. Now, a 00 school is a school that tests out 0% proficient in reading and 0% proficient in math. And why is that important? Well, if you think about how our district has been taken over by emergency management, one of the main reasons they use for taking it over is our academic performance. Now, here we are 6 years into a new community-led board situation, and the majority of our education schools in early elementary, our elementary schools, are testing out 00, 0% proficient in reading, 0% proficient in math.
How and when, I guess, did it get so bad? I mean, and why are people still voting for people that are not doing a good job? That's what I don't understand.
Well, it started getting bad during emergency management.
Okay.
Because when you start looking at emergency management, they came in and arbitrarily started closing schools down to balance the budget. And I tell you that when you close a school down, what you do is you kill a community. You kill a neighborhood, because the neighborhood no longer has that. The school I graduated from, with so many qualified people came from Angel Elementary School, it's an empty field now.
Okay.
And when you close that down, if you look around the neighborhood now, the neighborhood where Angel existed at is a decimated neighborhood. So it contributes to blight, it contributes to unemployment, it contributes to all of those negatives that we're now fighting with. And another thing that people don't consider is that the old folks used to say, if they knew better, they do better.
We're going to end it at that. John, you got something for us in these last few minutes?
Yeah, I do. I just want to
Real quick.
recite another poem. I call it Zeitgeistian Wishes 3. Great fate, pray thee, I would you'd free the seer in me, that I may see the wind, and be the rain, and know the starlit snow. This is what we wish for our kids. We want them to be able to see the as yet unseen, and to reign their accumulated knowledge that they've acquired in the Detroit Public Schools. Hopefully now that we can get this reading program fixed, reign everything they know upon the world, and know the as yet unknown.
You've been listening to the John Telford Detroit Show with Dr. John Telford and co-host Charlotte Jones on WJZZ Detroit Internet Television, coming to you live every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. Also streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Contact Dr. Telford at 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Or at Dr. John Telford, EDD, at AOL.com. That's DrJohnTelford, at AOL.com. To sponsor or appear on this show, or to get signed copies of this book, which Bill Perkins, Jeffrey Feiger, and Dr. Wayne Dyer all call spellbinding and sensational. It was the late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer who said, Dr. John Telford has a warrior's heart and a poet's soul. Read Dr. Telford's commentaries on the schools and other vital topics in the Telford Telescope column in the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. And also hear him on his other station, WCHB AM 1340, every Saturday morning at 9:30 and Monday evening at 6:30. That's every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. and Monday evening at 6:30 p.m. on WCHB AM 1340. Tune in again next Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock to the John Telford Detroit Show here on WJZZ Cool TV with Dr. Telford and co-host Charlotte Jones. Thank you for listening to the John Telford Detroit Show.
It's a good show. It's going